right, so we're back here at this Deloitte 4-step process. And we've identified all of our individual separable operations. We've gone through and determined the functional currency of each distinct and separable operation. Any operations or any kinds of transactions that are recorded in a different currency other than the functional currency have to be remeasured. So we talk about functional currency, now we just introduced recording currency. So recording currency could also be, right? So if we think about a US company, right? Let's take the simplest approach. A US company with only one distinct and separable operation. The US company's recording, functional, and reporting currency are all the same. They're the US dollar. So again, the example is we have a single operation unit, single distinct separable operation unit, only one. It is in the US. All transactions are recorded. We have recorded currency is the US dollar. The functional currency is the US dollar. And we report to users of the financial statements in the US dollar. So we've got recording currency, functional currency, and reporting currency. They're all the same. But as we pointed out in our little schematic here previously, that may not be the case, right? This is a hot mess. We've got the parent has got a recorded currency of $1 here. Maybe these 2, 3, and 4 are also recorded at $1. Their functional is also at $1, right? As it turns out, if the parent reporting currency is also the dollar, these are okay. Maybe this parent is this operation one is also a U.S. entity, so its functional currency and reporting currency is also going to be the U.S. dollar. Let's assume that this is, we'll say this is U.S. dollar, 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 and then this is peso. This is euro, and this is yuan. Okay, and then this is also op 5-1 is the dollar. Okay, so what I just drew in blue, right? These are the recording currencies. What I'm going to draw in red, let's assume that what I draw in red are the functional currencies. Okay. And the reporting currency only exists in one place because this is a consolidated entity. In black, that's the US dollar. That's the reporting currency. Okay? All right. So let's take a look at this. So this crazy mess, and trust me, I made this up, right? So what we've got in blue is the recording currency. What I have in red is the functional currencies. So these are easy, right? Recording and functional are the same, right? We don't have to do any remeasurement here. And the same thing with the peso. The peso, the recording currency is the peso. The functional currency is the peso. We're good. Here, and we're always starting from the bottom and moving up. Here, Operation 5-1, right? One of the subsidiaries of the Chinese parent, the recording currency is the dollar, and we determine that the functional currency is also the dollar. This Chinese parent can't pull cash out. Sales prices are determined down here. They do not have control from a cash flow, operations, sales markets. This entity has control of its own markets, control of its own cash flows. So I'm saying that this one, the functional currency and the recording currency are the same. Here is where I throw the spanner into the works, if you will. Here, the recording currency is the euro, but we determine that the functional currency is the yuan because of the Chinese parent's influence over this German subsidiary. So this entity has to go through step 3 in Deloitte's plan. This has to be remeasured. Okay, that has to be remeasured. And then and it's remeasured into the yuan. Now it can be consolidated into the parent. What about this little subsidiary over here? This one needs to be translated. To the yuan. Right? It's going to seem odd because ultimately we have to go and translate back to the US dollar. But if you follow the logic, you should translate this into this parent into the yuan. And then you'll have to translate this entire Chinese parent because the recording currency is the yuan, the functional currency is the yuan, but the reporting currency is the US dollar. So this entire subsidiary would have to all be translated back to the US dollar. This doesn't need any translation. This doesn't need any translation. This doesn't need any translation. Neither does Operation 1-1, 1-2, or 1-3. This one also needs to be translated to the US dollar. Because its parent, right? We decide the functional currency is still the peso, but its parent, their functional currency is the US dollar. So this also has to be translated to US dollars. Then we got US dollars, US dollars. We have to do a translation here into the US dollar, right? So this one has to be translated into the US dollar. Can you see what a mess this is? This can get very tricky. Am I going to ask you to replicate this? Absolutely not. That's crazy. What we're trying to do is give you some exposure to this stuff and have you think about the logic of going from the bottom to the top and understanding what's the recording currency, what are the functional currencies, and how do I ultimately get to the reporting currency of the parent, the big parent, the father parent. So each one of these steps has to be done independently. You can't sit there and just consolidate this up to the parent because you may have intercompany transactions that are going back and forth between the Chinese sub-parent and Op 5-1. And then Op 5-2, we've determined that the yuan is the functional currency, so this has to be entirely remeasured. This remeasurement goes to the income statement. All these translations that we have here, 3 translations, Mexican peso to US dollar to the yuan, and then the yuan to the US dollar. All of those translations go to OCI. Any gains or losses from the foreign currency differences go to OCI. All of this remeasurement to the yuan, that goes to the income statement. So we go back to our our steps 1 through 3. What you see here is all of the only one that we had that was a 3 was that German subsidiary where the recording currency was the euro, but the functional currency was the yuan. That is the only one that had to be remeasured. Most everything else, the recording currency, the functional currency, both were the US dollar, which coincided with the reporting currency for the parent. For the Mexican peso, for the US dollar under the Chinese parent, and then the Chinese subsidiary under the consolidated parent, those all had to have translations. Those all had to go through step 4 up to the reporting currency. Right? We want to make sure that we got everything back to the reporting currency. Right? But this little weird thing where you've got a U.S. subsidiary underneath the Chinese parent, you've got to go through and do a translation and then translate again back to the U.S. dollar. It seems silly, but that's what you've got to do.